Well, another 3 years have passed, and another Yu-Gi-Oh series has gone by. And we have nothing really special for Yu-Gi-Oh content in April since V-Range doesn't begin until May. The Yu-Gi-Oh anime, one of the biggest parts of my childhood. Hey you guys, how's it going? I am Yugo, or the Shaper one here, Clearwing Secret Dragon, and welcome back to another video. This is making a video that I've been looking forward to making for a very long time now. That being a video where I rank all 5 Yu-Gi-Oh series from my least favorite down to my favorite now that Arc 5 is finally over. Yu-Gi-Oh has always been something that has a special place in my heart, because as the series got older, I felt like I grew up alongside it. Back where it all started with Duel Monsters, I was just about 6 years old when it first came to the US, and I was immediately hooked on it, watching it every Saturday morning and finding a group of friends who loved it as much as I did. And not long after I turned 10, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX came around, and I loved it just as much, watching it every day after school and on Saturday mornings, making more friends because of it. Then 5Ds came along, and the franchise and the game itself began anew, and honestly, I skipped 5D due to his motorcycle since I felt like it was a dumb idea. Even now, I still think it's a dumb idea. In fact, I didn't give 5Ds a chance until I was about maybe 15 starting high school, but I wound up liking it far more than I thought I would. After 5Ds came Zexal, which I had no chance of trying until sometime after I graduated from high school, and while Zexal did take some time for me to warm up to, I will say I did like it far more than I thought it would as well, and it is a worthy addition to the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. And finally, we have the recently concluding series Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, which I didn't even know existed until late 2015 when it was halfway through its run. And Arc 5 was actually quite a pleasant surprise I immediately got immersed into, despite its ups and downs. So as you can gather, I like all 5 of these series, believe them at worst to be decent, or at best. And now friends, since Arc 5 is over, it's time for the much anticipated video, which Yu-Gi-Oh! Series is the best. A video that I've been very excited to make, having started on this video way back in October last year, but I wanted to wait until Arc 5 ended to actually finish the video. And before I actually get on to the actual video, I can't stress enough that this list is completely subjective, as the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Series is something up to fan interpretation. That I know this fan base is extremely broken, being split between the standard Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan and those Yu-Gi-Oh! Gen 1ers who despise everything that's not Duel Monsters or Duel Monsters and GX. Heck, a good friend of mine here on YouTube, Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, told me a video like this is something that divides the fan base, and while Dylan is a good friend, I say horseshit. The fan base is broken up as it is, so let's break it some more and have fun watching it break. But again, I want to repeat, I don't dislike any Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, I like them all. Each series has something that appeals to me and something that I don't like. Even my favorite series has flaws, but enough rambling, on to the actual list, starting with number 5. Starting off our list at the number 5 position would be Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
You suck!
Yes, that's right people. Bring on the flames, bring on the flames. My least favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Series is definitely Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Earlier I said I love Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and it does hold a special place in my heart, but that reason is really for nostalgia rather than genuine love. But I never let nostalgia hold me back from picking at something like vultures on a dead animal. If you've seen my videos in the past, you would know my motto. Nostalgia is a powerful drug, but it's not a drug I overdose on. Nostalgia can only take you so far, but if that's the best thing you've got going for you, then it won't get too far. And GX is as follows. It doesn't get that far at all. I did love GX as a kid, but watching it now, I can see that it really has a lot of flaws that I just can't ignore, namely being its plot and its characters. The plot of GX as a whole is just one big mess with no real concrete plot like the other series. Duel monsters. Yamayuki recovering his memories as an ancient Egyptian pharaoh so he could finally be put to rest and join his family and friends in the afterlife. 5Ds. 6 people who are heroes of the Crimson Dragon to save the world from Iliaster, who plan on destroying Neo Domino City to save their future. Zexal. Yuya and Astral getting all 100 number cards to help Astral recover his memory so he can return to the Astral world after completing his mission that he was sent to Earth to fulfill. Arc 5. Yuya stopping a dimensional war between 4 separate dimensions and bringing peace and uniting all of them with his entertainment dueling. All these series had a concrete plot from start to finish, while GX didn't have that. Its first 2 seasons were just all over the place. Whenever they had an established important plot for those particular seasons, they'd regularly stray away from that plot to do something completely different and unrelated to the story, with Judai or a different castmate fighting a one-shot character who'd never be seen again. Pretty much 70% of the entire first season might as well be fanfiction that became anime. That was 52 episodes long and didn't really establish a plot until about 30 episodes. And even then they still stray away from the current situation at hand to do something completely different. That wasn't much of a problem in Season 2, but it was still prevalent and happening from time to time. With a brainwashing cult that would still do fanfiction next episodes. Season 3 onwards, when the show began to take a more serious and darker turn, with no filler being focused on an actual plot from start to finish. With a newfound focus, Season 3 and 4 of GX turned out to be really good. Although there were still some missteps for me, like Season 3 dragging on longer than it really should have, and Season 4 feeling extremely rushed, I overall still thought both seasons were still really good. The characters of GX didn't really leave a lasting impression on me either. They had some development here and there, but I thought they were still lacking, with Judai virtually hogging all the screen time, action, taking all the development for himself. It's in no way bad to develop your main character, but your main character isn't the only character. Judai got so much screen time I wound up not really caring about the other members of the main cast. My favorite characters of GX were Judai, Johan, Kaiser, Atticus, and Astro Phoenix, O'Brien, and Jim Cook. And all these characters, barring Judai, were side characters who only appeared every so often. So it's really saying something if I care more about the supporting cast, who overall don't have as much screen time as the main cast. The duels of GX weren't really all that great. GX did have good duels, but none of them really blew me away, and more often than not, they ranged from being decent to just good. Overall, I don't dislike GX. It has some good things. I like Judai's story of being the classic tale of a kid growing up from an always happy kid to who doesn't have a care in the world to learn that the world isn't always a happy place, which is something that all of us can relate to. But I don't like how its main cast were treated as just side characters. An overall mess with the story, and being very inconsistent with the plot of its first 2 seasons. Overall for me, GX is just a decent series. At best, I'm going to give a 6 out of 10. Number 4, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. And here we are with the recently concluding series, and the one that I didn't even know existed at first. I also didn't know about Arc 5 until about maybe halfway through its run. It was something that I immediately got hooked on. So much that I binge-watched all 80 episodes of the series at that point in time in less than a week. Because this series really was just that good. Which seriously pains me to say why Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 is number 4 on this list. Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 is definitely the most disappointing Yu-Gi-Oh! Series we've gotten so far, that had the most potential of any series we've had so far, and it fell short to live up to that potential. I mean, this series had everything. A balanced protagonist, a cool main rival, a cool leading lady, other cool characters, 6 other characters that were technically speaking main characters as well, that were even more interesting than our leading lady and the actual protagonist. And probably the most interesting plot of any Yu-Gi-Oh series to date, but all those things just fell flat on their faces, with our main protagonist of the series being a static character for the last portion of the series. A rival who hardly did anything at all at the end of the day, even though he has a good reason, it still doesn't do much for the story at the end of the day either. The leading lady became a damsel in distress for the final half of the series, becoming Anzu Gardner 3.0. Characters who were pushed to the side for legacy characters, barring the dimensional counterparts, and even 2 of them didn't even get that much screen time when the series ended. And a story that was cool, but became incredibly rushed and poorly executed. The first 50 episodes of this series, or everything from the beginning up to the beginning of the Friendship Cup, I thought was very good. If Arc 5 would have kept that momentum from that point on onwards, I would say Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 could have easily been the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Series we've ever had so far. But the Friendship Cup itself dragged on longer than what it needed to, lasting almost 35 episodes. And while a few of the duels were cool, I won't deny that, nothing interesting or important happened for the plot of the overall show until the last 10 episodes of the Synchro arc. And really, I think the Synchro arc is what did this show in the first place. If the Synchro Dimension arc was about maybe 35 episodes long, and the other 15 or 20 episodes went to the XZ Dimension arc, then this show would have had a better chance to be higher on this list than what it is right now. Because the Synchro Dimension arc really did not need to go on for a full year. It could have gone on shorter than that. And then we have the XZ Dimension arc, which is where the series really began to shift into maximum overdrive, which really showed because the last 50 or so episodes of the series were incredibly rushed or had completely pointless filler. Now, I won't say all of it was bad. During the XZ Dimension arc, we would usually shift back and forth between Yuya and Heartland and Yuzu and the Fusion Dimension. Episodes that took place in Heartland I found to be something that would range back and forth between decent to actually rather interesting, while with Yuzu and the Fusion Dimension, I thought every episode was really good. Then when the story began to shift fully into the Fusion Dimension, I thought it was actually really good, regularly putting out good episodes, which hadn't happened since the beginning of the series. Well, then again, barring all that shit with the Battle Beast, that went on way longer than what it needed to. I thought the final battle with Zark was alright, but from that point on, everything else just felt like filler. Then there's the ending, which I will say is easily the worst ending of any Yu-Gi-Oh! Series yet, being more depressing than the ending of the original series. And Arc 5's ending was depressing and not in a good way. While I will say I did expect something like that to happen, it doesn't make it any less infuriating. And while I'm on the topic of the ending, I will say it did leave me sad, but it left me sad for both the wrong reasons and the right reasons. That I'll get into when I review Arc 5 in its entirety. Regardless, Arc 5 to end did make me sad in the right way, with an ending that really did pull at my heartstrings. Because whenever you follow a show for so long, it is sad to see it go because it pretty much became a part of your daily life or your weekly life, waiting for episodes week after week, being disappointed when the show went on break, or when some BS ping pong tournament happens that cancels an episode. Following the show for so long, you will get sad when it ends, and I did get sad when Arc 5 ended. Because despite the problems that Arc 5 may have had, I won't deny that it was still a fun ride that I did enjoy overall. Arc 5 did have some good duels I will say are some of the most exciting duels I've ever seen from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. While I do think other series may have better duels than Arc 5, Arc 5 reigns supreme in putting out very exciting duels that made your heart pound from start to finish. Overall, while Arc 5 was a depressing series, it was still a good one. I know I have been harping on Arc 5 more than I did GX, but that's only because Arc 5 had so much potential that was wasted. But even at its worst, I still think Arc 5 was better and more interesting than GX at its worst, which I found to be pretty boring. And Arc 5 at its best was still better and more interesting than GX at its best. Arc 5 might have had the worst ending yet for a Yu-Gi-Oh! Series and lost a lot of momentum during its run, but I'm not going to write the show off just because of that. I'll say Arc 5 was a decent series at its best, nearly edging out GX. When I say nearly, I mean nearly. I'll give Arc 5 a 6.5 out of 10. Which is sad to say because this was the best case scenario for Arc 5 in my opinion, or second best scenario. And this is where it's at now. Coming in at third place would be the fourth Yu-Gi-Oh series, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. Ah yes, I'm sure those Yu-Gi-Oh! Gen winners are livid at me placing the horrendous series that is Zexal above the gloriousness of this Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal is actually something I initially jumped on the bandwagon of despising before I actually watched it, and after I watched it, I gained a newfound appreciation for it. The initial half of Zexal is what proved to be a problem amongst the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans, with a lot of them dropping it and moving on to something else. For all the issues that Zexal may have, like essentially most of the main cast being useless, with only 3, maybe 4 good characters that would appear every so often, Yuma's incompetence as a duelist, which is something that I actually really did like. Before Yuma, our protagonists were already skilled duelists when they were introduced, while Yuma on the other hand hardly knew the basics, and that made a lot of amateur's mistakes, and expected his opponents to be so as well. It was nice to see that Yuma wasn't a dueling prodigy like Yugi, Judai, or Yusei. It's something that kids can relate to, who are new to the series. It's nice to see a protagonist who actually starts off really bad, but becomes great as time goes on. Also, Zexal had a problem of being downright slow and a little boring at times, but it did get better. If you have the fortitude to trudge through the first half of Zexal, then you may have a good time with this series. While I will admit, I gave Zexal 8 or 9 separate chances, it failed to live up to my expectations almost every time. Mind you, I'm still letting the opinions of others influence how I felt on this series. Last year, I finally decided to give Zexal a first shot. Well, the first half of Zexal a shot, for the 9th or 10th time. And while it wasn't as good as I had hoped it would be, it was at least better than what I expected it to be. It starts off a little slow, with Kaito and Shark being the only things that keep the things interesting. But once the Arclight family shows up, and the World Duel Carnival begins, that's where things begin to take a more interesting turn for the show. Once we got to the second half of the series with Zexal 2, things shift gears, starting off slow, but still offer a little bit of fun. But once Mizal, the Barian Emperor, shows up, the story begins to get a lot darker, a lot more serious, and drastically improves. The Barian Onslaught arc to this day is one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Storylines I have seen to date. We didn't have too many amazing characters with this series. The only characters I actually liked from Zexal being Kaito, Shark, Rio, and maybe Astral. The duels of Zexal aren't out of this world amazing, but they do offer quite a few good duels, and those duels that are good are really good. Zexal gave Yuma vs. Nash, which in my opinion is one of the best duels of the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Overall, Zexal isn't a bad series, regardless of what those Gen 1ers and Yu-Gi-Oh! Nostalgic fans will tell you. At best, I will say it's a good one. It has issues similar to that of GX, but like GX, it got its crap together and really got going. Zexal's first half started off really slow, but it was nice with Kaito and Shark carrying the story. Zexal had a much better and exciting second half than GX did. I didn't really feel rushed like GX was. Not to mention, Zexal has more consistency with its overall story compared to GX. Zexal, for me, is an underrated gem. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be. I'm going to give Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal a 7.5 out of 10. Fair score for a good series. Coming in second place would be the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series Duel Monsters.
You suck!
So is anyone mad yet? Yeah, I figured some people would be. Anyway, that's right, the original series, Duel Monsters, isn't number 1. With this being the original series, it does hold some nostalgic value for me, but unlike some fans, I don't let nostalgia or my rose-colored glasses get in the way of me seeing that the original series isn't flawless, by any means. And it has flaws just like every other series, and for me, it does have some big ones. Primary issues I have with the original series is that almost half of the story is filler, and that same percentage of the story is kind of bad. Roughly 40% of the Duel Monsters anime was filler, while overall 40% of the show was just bad. Out of all 6 story arcs of the original series, there are only 3 that I actually liked. Duel Monsters, I really didn't like this arc. Battle City, I love. Virtual World, mediocre at best. The Waking the Dragons or Orichalcos arc, I do enjoy it. The KC Grand Prix, one big mess, and the Millennium World arc, which I really did enjoy. Another thing that bothered me about the original series was how we only had 3 characters that actually did something and were actually worth something in the actual story. Yugi, Kaiba, and Joey. Meanwhile, everyone else is either a cheerleader, who really did anything aside from root for the aforementioned characters, or was just there to fill up space. However, I didn't read all the original manga, so I might be missing something there regarding other characters barring the Power Trio. Aside from those 2 things, I have no real issues with the original series, just those 2 things are major issues for me. Everything else was fine. Parts of the story that I really enjoyed. The Battle City arc to this day is still one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Arcs that we've gotten so far. The Orichalcos arc may have been filler, but I still thought it was really good, and the Millennium World arc was a good way to end the original series. I like the overall plot of trying to recover Yamayugi's memories. I like the Power Trio character-wise, and despite having the longest duels of the anime, the original series of this day still has some of the best duels the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime has put out yet. Duel Monsters is something I actually found to be watchable, either dubbed or subbed. The original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series is the only Yu-Gi-Oh! Series that I can actually watch in Japanese. I don't mind a dub of 5Ds, but I generally prefer to watch the spin-offs in Japanese. Not to mention the Japanese dub can really change your thoughts on any of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. The original series may not be my favorite, but it does have some nostalgic value. I was 6 when Duel Monsters first came to the US. Yugi's Duelist Kingdom deck was the first deck I ever owned. I grew up watching it every Saturday morning on Kiss WB. The original series was my childhood, like so many others. But, like I said when talking about GX, nostalgia is a powerful drug, but it's not a drug I'm going to overdose on. So if nostalgia really is one of the best things you've got going for you, it won't take you too far. So with that said, nostalgia won't be enough to take the original series of Duel Monsters to the #1. Although I will say the original series still does hold up well today and has aged nicely. After all these years, it is refreshing to go back and watch the original series again after 10 plus years of spin-offs. It may not be the best, but it is a solid 8.5 out of 10. Card games on motorcycles. That's right. #1, my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Series is Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds.
You suck!
That's right. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Series that flopped in Japan and turned so many people away from the franchise is my favorite installment of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Like I said in the beginning, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds was something that I initially jumped on the bandwagon of despising just for its motorcycles before I actually gave it a fair shot. When I did at the age of 14, I would have been enjoying 5Ds more than I actually thought I would, liking it just as much as I did the original. However, upon watching 5Ds in Japanese, which included the infamous Lost Season, and which overall had a little over 24 episodes that were never dubbed, my love for 5Ds increased and finally surpassed the original series. Without my nostalgia goggles, 5Ds is something I actually found to be better than the original series in just about every aspect. The writing of 5Ds, especially in its first half, was sublime. There's hardly any filler at all in the series, being about maybe 10% of the filler, while everything else is detrimental to the plot. The 5Ds cast, in my opinion, were all oh so likable and developed. The duels were intense and exciting, whether it was a riding duel or it was a ground duel. Yusei, in my opinion, is the best Yu-Tagus we've gotten so far in the anime. I've already explained why Jack and Akiza are my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Rival and female protagonists respectively in different videos. But for a quick recap, Jack, in my opinion, is the most developed rival we've gotten so far, and Akiza actually did live up to her potential for at least the first half of the series before being demoted to extra in the second half. Crow is a character that I could have fun with. His duel with Greiger really turned me into a fan of him. And Leo and Luna, despite being child characters, were actually really likable and well developed, especially for Leo. 5Ds had duels that are, in my opinion, on par, if not better than duels we've had in the original series, with some of my favorites being Yusei vs. Aporia, Yusei vs. Zone, Yusei vs. Akiza, Crow vs. Greiger, Jag vs. Carly, Team 5D vs. Team Ragnarok, the 5Ds Power Trio vs. Goodwin, and Yusei vs. Jack, or really any of the duels that Yusei and Jack have been good. If I had to pick a favorite, I would definitely say my favorite would be the duel they had at the Fortune Cup. 5Ds, with all of its positives, isn't flawless and does have some issues that I really wish could have been fixed during its run. The biggest issues of me for 5Ds were its characters and its writing, starting with the writing. While I did enjoy the overall story of 5Ds as a whole, its writing very clearly suffered in the second half of the series. The first 64 episodes of 5Ds, the beginning all the way until the end of the Darksiders arc, was great. Very well done. The character development was really good. It really shined in the first half of the series, and I would say that would be the single greatest arc of all of Yu-Gi-Oh! In my opinion. While the second half was still good, it wasn't great, with the beginning of it really being filler hell for about 30 episodes, preparing for the WRGP, and only half of those 30 episodes were actually spent getting ready for the WRGP, while the rest of it were just meaningless filler that had no real value to the plot. It wasn't until the last 40, maybe 30 episodes until 5Ds had got that same gritty, mature feeling it had in the beginning back. Not saying everything else in between them was bad. I did enjoy some of the Road to WRGP storyline. I did enjoy some of the WRGP storyline. They just weren't as good as the beginning and last 30 episodes of 5Ds were. Now on to point 2, the characters. While good, half of the main cast got the shaft in the second half of the series. Leo got some nice development in the second half and wound up getting more screen time than his sister, and she was supposed to be more important to the story than he was. With that said, Luna didn't do much in the second half or at all in the entire series, and she was one of the original 5 signers, having only 4 on-screen duels, and only one half of them opposed to her brother, who had almost twice as many duels as she did. And more disappointing when you take into account that Luna was supposed to be the stronger and more skilled duelist out of the two of them, yet she never got the chance to showcase that. And her brother didn't actually get signer status until the last 12 episodes of 5Ds, and he got signer status in his last duel of the series. Then there's Akiza, who probably got the worst treatment of the entire main cast. In the first half of the series, Akiza had a more prominent role in the story, where she was treated as the tritagonist of the show, before executive meddling took place and her role in the story was given to Crow. And in the second half, she hardly dueled and was more of a supporting character and Yusei's implied and more or less confirmed love interest. Going back to the Road to WRGP arc, which was 30 episodes, half of those episodes were needless filler that could have been taken out and nothing would have been different. With that being the case, those 15 episodes could have been used as a mini arc for Akiza and the twins, or just the entire cast in general, to develop them so them getting ready for the WRGP. I would have loved for Akiza to have some closure to her ties to the Arcadia movement, since it was just completely forgotten after the Darksiders arc. Overall, while 5Ds does have its flaws, it's still an amazing series with great characters, a good storyline and plot. I love the dark and gritty and serious atmosphere that 5Ds had. 5Ds, in my opinion, has the best soundtrack of any series to date. Best protagonists, rivals, female protagonists. It may have had some issues in the middle of its run, but it slowly got its momentum back close to the end of the series. If 5Ds had fixed some of the problems it had, I would say it's a flawless series, but despite its flaws, it's still, in my opinion, the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Series we've gotten so far, and I'm going to give a 9.5 out of 10. And there you have it, friends. That's the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise, in my opinion, from my least favorite series down to my favorite. Did you enjoy the video? And if you didn't, I'm terribly sorry about that. But what are your least favorites and favorite series? What do you think of the franchise? What do you think of Arc 5? Were you disappointed with its ending? Did you like the series overall? Comment below and let me know. And right now, I do have a bunch of other Yu-Gi-Oh! Themed videos planned to do since now Arc 5 is over, and that gives me a lot more to work with. And with April being an entire month pretty much devoid of anything really important for Yu-Gi-Oh! Content, and by that I mean we don't get rearranged until May for some reason, I think I might review all 5 Yu-Gi-Oh! Series on their own. Think of a full in-depth review of them before V-Reign starts. And I guess I will review Yu-Gi-Oh! V-Reign's episodes weekly like I did for Arc 5, or at least try to. But until then, I have plenty of other ideas for Yu-Gi-Oh! Themed videos, so Arc 5's ending is going to have me pretty busy, as you can tell. Because script writing, audio recording, editing does take quite a bit of time. Regardless, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it. Arc 5, despite its ending, was pretty fun overall. But for now, this is the end. It's your movie, you guys, so get your game on, rev it up, and feel the flow because the fun has just begun. I am Hugo, or the Shaper Study 1 Clearing Synchro Dragon, and I will see you guys in future videos. Stay golden, everyone.